Right now, at this very moment, your local grocery store has everything you need to survive almost any disaster. But the moment catastrophe strikes, and it will, you have a window of maybe 2 hours before the chaos begins. 2 hours before the water aisle looks like a war zone. 2 hours before batteries, flashlights, and canned soup disappear from shelves entirely. 2 hours before rational, ordinary people start shoving strangers over the last case of Dasani. And here's the brutal truth most survival guides won't tell you. Fighting that crowd is exactly the wrong move. The people who actually make it through extended grid down events, the ones who keep their families fed, hydrated, and functional for days or even weeks, they're not in the water aisle. They're not wrestling over soup cans. They're calmly walking through sections of the store that nobody else even glances at, loading their carts with 11 items that look completely ordinary but function like a professional survival kit. Today, you're getting the exact playbook that combat medics, FEMA veterans, and disaster relief workers have quietly used across real emergencies, from Hurricane Katrina to earthquake relief zones. These are field-tested strategies built on hard experience, not theory, and we're going to walk through every single item, where to find it, why it works, and why the crowds will never touch it. Stay with us until the third section, because we're going to reveal one of the most powerful medical tools available in any crisis, and it's sitting in an aisle that most people walk past without a single thought. You are not going to guess what it is. Welcome to Crisis Horizon, where survival knowledge becomes everyday confidence. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. The more people find this channel, the more lives get protected before the next disaster hits. Now, let's get into it. Picture this. It's the morning after a major storm warning has been issued. You pull into the grocery store parking lot and it's already packed. Inside, it sounds like a stadium. You can hear cart collisions from the entrance. The water aisle is a battlefield. Pallets stripped, bottles scattered on the floor, a man in a rain jacket physically blocking a shelf from a woman with 2 kids. That is not an exaggeration. That is exactly what happened during Hurricane Harvey in 2017. Bottled water gone in under 2 hours across entire metro areas. So you do something different. You turn your cart toward the hardware section. There, sitting completely untouched on a shelf, are water bob bathtub bladders and heavy-duty contractor bags. Nobody's reaching for them. Nobody even sees them as relevant. But here's what those people don't know. A single water bob bladder lines your bathtub and holds over 60 gallons of clean municipal water. You fill it before water pressure drops, which happens within hours of major infrastructure disruption. 60 gallons. For a family of 4, that's a full week of drinking water, and you secured it quietly, efficiently, while others were bruising their shins on shopping carts 3 aisles over. If water bobs are sold out, and sometimes they are, contractor bags work as a backup. Heavy-duty, thick-gauge bags can line any large container, a bathtub, a storage bin, even a clean garbage can, and hold water safely for short-term storage. Multiple bags, multiple containers, and suddenly you've built a water reserve that cost you less than $20 and required zero competition. But storage alone isn't enough. What happens when your tap water becomes unsafe, or you need to draw from an alternative source, a pond, a stream, a barrel collecting rainwater? This is where most people are completely unprepared, and where one of the most overlooked items in any store becomes your most powerful asset. Head to the pool supply section. Find the Pool Shock, calcium hypochlorite, usually in small 1-pound bags. This product gets ignored during every single disaster panic without exception because nobody connects pool chemicals with drinking water survival. But one of those bags, costing around $5, can purify up to 10,000 gallons of water when diluted correctly. 10,000 gallons. Compare that to a bottle of liquid bleach, which degrades within 6 months, provides a fraction of the purification capacity, and gets grabbed immediately. Pool Shock, by contrast, has a shelf life of years, provides exponentially more coverage, and will be sitting right there on the shelf when you need it. The dilution process is straightforward. A small amount of Pool Shock is first mixed into water to create a concentrated solution, and then that solution is added to your stored water in precise amounts. This is information you should write down and keep with your supplies, but the core point stands. For $5 and 30 seconds of preparation, you have a water purification system capable of sustaining a community. Now let's talk about power, because the moment the grid fails, a very specific panic sets in, and it centers on one product, *AA batteries.
Within the first wave of disaster shopping, standard alkaline batteries are gone, and even if you manage to grab a few packs, here's the problem nobody talks about until it's too late. They run out. You use them once and they're dead. In a prolonged outage that lasts days or weeks, disposable batteries are not a power strategy. They're a countdown to darkness. The smarter move is already waiting for you in the electronics section, also completely untouched during most disaster shopping rushes. USB rechargeable lithium batteries look almost identical to standard alkaline, but they last up to 3 times longer per charge cycle, and critically, they can be recharged.
Pair them with a folding solar panel, compact, lightweight, and available at most outdoor retailers and large electronics stores, and you have created a closed loop of sustainable power. Sunlight comes in, batteries charge, lights stay on, devices stay functional. You never run out. While others are rationing their last AA battery for a flashlight, you are recharging indefinitely from sunlight, day after day. This combination shifts your relationship with power from consumable to renewable, and it is one of the most important mindset shifts in all of disaster preparedness. Let's talk about food, because this is where most people make their biggest mistake, and it comes down to a misunderstanding of what survival eating actually requires. When disaster hits, people instinctively grab what's familiar: canned soup, tuna, pasta, comfort foods. And there's nothing wrong with those items except for one critical flaw: calorie density. In a grid-down scenario, your body is under physical and psychological stress. You may be exerting more energy than usual, moving supplies, managing your household without modern conveniences, potentially dealing with extreme heat or cold without air conditioning or heating. Your calorie requirements go up, and your access to food goes down. In that environment, what you need is not comfort. What you need is fuel. A standard can of soup contains somewhere around 150 to 250 calories. Now, walk past the soup aisle entirely and head to the international food section. Pick up canned coconut milk. One single can of full-fat coconut milk contains over 600 calories. That is 4 times the caloric value of a soup can in approximately the same size container for a comparable price. It is rich in healthy fats, has a long shelf life, requires no preparation, and can be incorporated into everything from rice to oats to hot drinks. And it sits completely untouched during disaster shopping because most people never connect it to survival nutrition. Right next to it, or just a few aisles over in the baking section, you'll find canned butter. Shelf-stable, calorie-dense, and virtually ignored by panic buyers who are sprinting past it toward the bread aisle. Butter adds calories, flavor, and practical cooking versatility to nearly any food you're preparing. In survival terms, calorie efficiency per ounce is the metric that separates a functional diet from one that leaves you weak and disoriented within days. These aisles, international, baking, are your personal warehouse during a disaster, fully stocked while everyone else fights over the last can of chicken noodle. But here's the thing about high-calorie food: it means nothing if you can't heat it, cook it, or sterilize water to go with it. And this brings us to one of the most critical and consistently overlooked bottlenecks in disaster survival: fuel. No grid means no electric stove. In many cases, it also means no gas if local lines are damaged or shut down for safety. Without a reliable heat source, you cannot cook food, cannot boil water to make it safe, cannot sterilize tools or containers, and cannot generate warmth if temperatures drop. One missing element, fuel, creates a cascade of failures across every other system you've built. The solution is sitting right there in the camping section, untouched by the crowds because most disaster shoppers don't think about camping gear when the grid goes down. A single-burner camp stove and a 4-pack of butane or propane canisters. That's it. For under $50, you restore your ability to cook, to boil and purify water, to heat your living space, and to maintain the hygiene practices that prevent illness when medical care is hard to reach. Each canister provides hours of cooking time, and a 4-pack covers days of consistent use. This is not a luxury item in a grid-down scenario. It is infrastructure. Now, fuel also connects directly to fire, and fire is one of the foundational survival capabilities that goes beyond cooking. It means warmth when temperatures drop dangerously. It means sterilization of tools when medical supplies are limited. It means a visible signal to rescue teams if you need to be located.
Most people reach for disposable lighters, and that's fine as far as it goes. Grab them if they're available. But a disposable lighter is fundamentally unreliable under field conditions. It runs out of fuel. The flint wears down. It fails in wind, in rain, in extreme cold. If your lighter is your only fire-starting capability, you are one malfunctioned spark wheel away from having no fire at all. In the camping aisle, right next to the stoves and fuel canisters, you will find ferrocerium rods. These are small metal rods, typically attached to a simple scraper, and they produce sparks exceeding 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. They work when wet, they work in wind, they work in below freezing temperatures. One rod produces thousands of strikes over its lifetime and has no expiration date. You do not run out, you do not replace it, it simply works every single time under any conditions, for as long as you own it. One ferro rod replaces dozens of disposable lighters in terms of long-term reliability, and it costs less than $10. In terms of function per dollar, it is nearly unbeatable. We've talked about water, power, food, and fire. Now we come to the part of disaster preparedness that most people get dangerously wrong: medical supplies and hygiene. Because here is what actually happens in the first hour of disaster shopping. The pharmacy section gets stripped. Bandages, gone. Ibuprofen, gone within minutes of opening. If you arriving at the store even slightly behind the first wave, the obvious medical supplies are already history. But there's a section of the store that even experienced preppers overlook completely: the pet.
Veterinary-grade triple antibiotic ointment sits on those shelves with the same active formulation as the human-grade product: neomycin, polymyxin B, and bacitracin, at a lower price point and with almost zero competition from panic buyers. Nobody in the middle of a disaster scramble is thinking about the pet aisle as a medical resource. That means it's yours, fully stocked, when the pharmacy shelves look like they've been looted. Alongside the antibiotic ointment, you want butterfly closure strips, also known as wound closure strips, which are essential for managing lacerations in the field. In a situation where hospitals are overwhelmed, roads are flooded, or emergency services are simply unavailable, a serious cut becomes a life-threatening problem without the right tools. Butterfly strips bring the edges of a wound together and hold them there, allowing the tissue to begin healing without stitches. Combat medics and field surgeons have relied on this technique for decades. It doesn't replace professional medical care, but when professional medical care isn't accessible, it buys you time. And in survival, time is everything. Now, we promised you in the introduction that we'd reveal one of the most surprising medical tools available during a crisis, something sitting in an aisle that most people walk right past. Here it is: Aisle 12, the feminine hygiene section. Tampons. Before you dismiss this, understand something. Combat medics have been using tampons as emergency wound packing tools since the Vietnam War. Individually wrapped, sterile, and engineered specifically to absorb fluid under pressure, they are remarkably well suited for managing puncture wounds and deep lacerations when conventional wound packing gauze isn't available. They slow bleeding, maintain pressure, and buy critical time for more advanced treatment. This is not a folk remedy or internet speculation. It is documented field medicine practice used by military medical personnel in active combat zones. Beyond their medical application, tampons are also, of course, an essential hygiene item, and their barter value in an extended crisis skyrockets for exactly that reason. 4 or 5 boxes serve you 3 ways simultaneously: as medical tools, as hygiene supplies, and as high-value trade goods when other supplies run dry. Speaking of hygiene and survival needs that intersect, let's talk about rehydration, because this is an area where most people have been misled by marketing for years. When the grid fails in summer heat, or during a disaster that involves physical exertion and stress, dehydration becomes one of the leading threats to life. People know this, which is why they fight over Gatorade and sports drinks, but here's what the label doesn't tell you. Sports drinks are primarily sugar water with a small amount of electrolytes added for flavor and marketing purposes. They were designed for athletes replacing minerals after a workout. They were not designed for serious clinical dehydration. Walk to the baby aisle. Pick up Pedialyte. Pedialyte was originally developed for treating severe dehydration in children and has been used in cholera treatment protocols internationally. It contains 2 to 3 times the electrolyte concentration of standard sports drinks, with a scientifically calibrated ratio of sodium, potassium, and glucose, designed specifically to maximize fluid absorption at the cellular level.
During heat waves, power outages in summer, or any event where your body is losing fluids faster than normal, Pedialyte is genuinely superior at restoring hydration, and it sits in the baby aisle completely untouched during disaster shopping, because nobody in a panic thinks to look there. While you're building this survival cart, there is one more item you need to know about, and it may be the highest utility per dollar purchase in this entire list: heavy-duty contractor trash bags. A single box costs around $15, and what you get is a tool that functions in at least 7 distinct survival capacities: waterproof rain poncho, cut holes for your head and arms; insulation layer, fill a bag with dry leaves or crumpled newspaper and wear it inside your clothing for an emergency thermal layer; blackout curtain, keep light from escaping your windows at night for security and energy conservation; sanitation liner, critical for maintaining waste management when plumbing fails; wound wrap, keep injuries clean and dry in field conditions; water collection funnel, shape the bag to direct rainwater into a container; ground cover and moisture barrier, protect yourself and your supplies from damp ground. One product, $15, 7 functions, and during every single disaster panic on record, they sit untouched. Finally, we want to leave you with 2 items that most survival lists never include, but that veterans of real emergencies consistently cite as among the most valuable trade goods and practical tools available: magnifying glasses and reading glasses. A magnifying lens focused on dry tinder under direct sunlight can start a fire in seconds. No fuel, no sparks, no moving parts. Infinite uses as long as the sun is shining. As a backup fire-starting method, it is one of the most elegant and reliable tools you can carry. But the deeper value of reading glasses is something you only fully appreciate when supply chains break down. Millions of people depend on corrective lenses to read medication labels, maps, instruction manuals, and written communications. When you cannot order replacements online, when optical shops are closed, when the infrastructure that supplies corrective eyewear has collapsed, a pair of reading glasses becomes irreplaceable. They restore capability, independence, and dignity to anyone who needs them. In barter terms, that makes them extraordinarily valuable.
A person who cannot read their medication dosage will trade almost anything for glasses that let them see clearly. A few boxes of assorted reading glasses, costing almost nothing at a dollar store or pharmacy, become one of the most thoughtful and powerful items in your entire survival cache. Here is what the complete picture looks like when you put it all together. While crowds are colliding in the water aisle, you are in the hardware section filling a cart with water storage solutions. While others grab disposable batteries, you are in electronics with rechargeable lithium cells and a solar panel. While the soup aisle empties, you are loading up on calorie-dense coconut milk and canned butter from aisles nobody thought to raid. You have fuel, fire, field medicine, hygiene tools, superior rehydration, and a box of contractor bags that replaces hundreds of dollars in specialized gear. You have reading glasses that could restore someone's ability to care for themselves, and you have paid almost nothing compared to the value you've built. In under 6 hours and without a single confrontation, you have assembled a survival system built on knowledge rather than speed, on strategy rather than panic. That is what Crisis Horizon is about. Not fear, not chaos, preparation, confidence, and the quiet knowledge that when things go wrong, you already know what to do. If this video gave you something useful, share it with someone who needs it: a neighbor, a family member, a friend in a flood zone or hurricane corridor. The more people who have this information before the next disaster, the less panic we all have to live through together. Subscribe to Crisis Horizon for more field-tested, practical knowledge, and we'll see you in the next one.